would like to bring in Mr. Saravanan to speak a little bit more about it, because I think as we all know, inventory management systems have existed for a long time in hospitals. But I would like to pass the baton to Mr. Saravanan, who can potentially give us some sort of an insight on what do you think are still the problems that exist in this particular domain, and how do you think that hospitals can really overcome and sort of reinvent themselves, right?
Hi guys, am I audible?
Yes, you
Yep.
are.
Wonderful, great. So great, Shravan. That was a good thought process which you shared with us, and that was very, enlightening for many of us. Okay, thanks a lot. And of course, to start talking about the questions, right? Uh, as you said, right, this SCM, the supply chain, this material management has been there for hundreds of years. Okay, be it healthcare or any other business or domain. But and obviously, the softwares which are needed to support them, they have always been there. But still, what is happening in the past 10 years? Okay, what are the challenges and new business opportunities which are coming up, and the limitations which are being faced by the SCM, to optimize how the not just the inventory part of it, but overall the operations in the hospital, how it is impacting, right? I can share some of my insights. Like, for the past 10, 15 years, I have been got a chance to work with multiple healthcare institutions, right from, small OP centers in very small towns like Kumbakonam to very sophisticated organizations like, Agarwal Group of Hospitals or a Common Group of Hospitals, etc. So if you look at it, even though SCM is one word, but what SCM means for a small hospital and a bigger hospital is very, very wide, right? So you have CXOs kind of CPO and SCM head in a sophisticated hospital, but when you look at most of the small level hospitals, it's typically a nurse or a pharmacist who does the whole activity, right? From deciding what to buy, from whom to buy and when to buy and all the stuff. Okay, and obviously the kind of IT budget he has to run his operations is also very, very limited. You have like 30,000 rupees worth of pharmacy management software which supports them. Okay, and also what is happening is the expectation from the SCM team has multiplied very high in the past 5 years. Okay, so look at, be it enterprise hospitals who are growing from 20 locations or 20 branches to 100 branches, 120 branches. Even small home nursing homes are becoming like 2 3 branches now, right? So everybody is expanding, be it in terms of the specialties, in terms of the volume of business or the locations, etc. This brings a lot of challenges. And again, then the ecosystem in terms of inventory needed, right? The categories, the manufacturers, the SKUs, it keeps on increasing. And what's also happening nowadays is with more and more TPS, contributing towards the patient payable towards the hospitals, the hospitals are getting into cash flow issues. Okay, so hospitals, now are having like 90 to 120 days to recover the payment from the TPS, right? So obviously the payment, the cash availability for a procurement manager. So it used to be a CFO problem, but once a CFO has a problem, ultimately it's going to have an impact on how efficiently a procurement can happen in a hospital, right? So that again is becoming a more and more bigger problem for the person who is handling the procurement. Okay. On top of it, the other thing is it can be seen as a problem or it can be seen as an opportunity for a SCM professional. The inventory, the SCM team is no more seen as a cost center, right? So people are looking the SCM team to contribute towards more and more towards both top line as well as a bottom line. Okay. Um, so there are a lot of pricing control which is happening, and there is only so much additional revenue you can generate on a hospital, right? Because it's very tough. You cannot manufacture quality consultants who can attract more and more business to that, right? So the management is now more expecting the SCM to play a very vital role in which they will be able to optimize what kind of items are being procured and utilized, so that the bottom line of the hospital also gets increased. Okay, so with all these challenges and this new expectation coming towards an SCM professional, obviously, the time-tested traditional inventory management systems will not suffice them to support them. Maybe still they can run that business, but to enable it and take it to the next level, there are more things to happen, right? Okay. So there are multiple technologies which are coming up, out of which I would like to share my experience on two or three things. Okay, so the one is of course like the demand planning, demand prediction, and with the AI coming to the picture and it's getting more and more mature, the demand prediction is having a big impact on the overall efficiency of the hospital finances, the procurement team's efficiency, and the ease of operations. Okay, so typically what it does is it tells you what you need to buy, when you need to buy, how much you need to buy, and many times like at what price you need to buy. Because the first three things, if you handle it properly, if you know exactly how much of an item you need and when do you need it and what you need, obviously you have a lot of knowledge and power to negotiate and get a better business value for the buyer. Okay, and not only for the buyer, even for the supplier, if a buyer is able to exactly tell what he's going to need in the next 1 year, the supplier on his end will be able to handle his inventory and his cash flow in a better way, so that a value is being generated both for the supplier, the manufacturer, as well as the buyer. Okay. So once that is happening, ultimately this value can be shared across all these stakeholders. Okay, so that is where this inventory or like the demand prediction plays a very very vital role. Okay, and again, apart from this, if you have a proper demand planning, so your cash flow becomes better, your privileges become better, your last opportunities in terms of sales becomes better. I will talk about an example, right, an use case. So it's a 100-bed hospital. They were dealing with like 120 suppliers, and the number of SKUs was around 4,000 and odd SKUs. Once we started doing a demand prediction, right, from the basic level to a very advanced level, there were a lot of hiccups, right? There were a lot of issues. The first foremost issue is the data itself is not clean, right? Once when the data is not clean, obviously everything becomes tougher. And then there are not very big operational policies. The analytics in the software was not good and all. Okay, but once we started addressing one after the other, including the supplier, we were able to, increase the revenue by 23 percentage, 23 and odd percentage. The procurement cost was, brought down by 32 percentage, and the cash flow was, made better. And more importantly, the patient's convenience also was very very high, because nowadays when a patient walks out of the hospital with an unfulfilled prescription, he has a lot of opportunities to go to nearby pharmacies or to an online stores to buy, right? So the top line of the hospital also got very much benefited because this demand prediction was done. Okay, and the good thing about is you don't need to be a very big enterprise to do it. Okay, even of a smaller mid-level segment hospital without very big, data science and all, still this can be applied at maybe a minimal level. Still, you can change how the overall SCM functionality works and how it adds value to the different stakeholders. The next thing what I would like to talk about is yeah, electronic document exchange. Okay, so the tech fad is RPA, robotic process automation. Okay, so obviously, since all of us are from the healthcare, you'll understand it's a very regulated market, right? So drugs and pharma items. So obviously, a lot of information has to flow from one entity to another entity. So from the manufacturer to a C&F, so a distributor, and in terms of narcotics, to the doctor, till a patient consumes and the case is disposed, it has to be tracked. Okay, and for one line item, you have the manufacturing date, you have the expiry date, you have the batch number, MRP, blah blah, right? Okay, so if you look at a hospital, say Baby Memorial Hospital, they are like a 800-bed multi-specialty hospital whose procurement is around 3 crore per month in the OPEX, I'm saying. Okay, so look at how many data entries happen. A typical PO has like 50 line items, and the line item has like six fields, and 230 to 250 POs are raised in a month. Okay, so all this information are again keyed into the system of the supplier, and then again it is keyed into the supplier of a C&F, and again it comes from the manufacturer, right? So, and again, once an invoice being starts moving from the manufacturer to the C&F to the distributor to the stores, you have n number of okay, I'm getting a, hey, is my video available?
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Okay, fine, great. So I got a ping, fine. Okay, so look at the number of data entries happen on the other side of it. Okay, and again here there are some misses here and there. Somebody orders for an zero point 0.5 mg tablet, and somebody takes a 2.5 mg. Okay. Apart from the manual work, there's a lot of issues. Errors also starts happening. Okay, and here is where an RPA or a electronic document exchange can add immense value. Be it a smaller hospital, nursing home, or a bigger enterprise, right? Say Cloudline or Agarwal, where they have like 100 branches, right? This again can be a very big boon. And all said and done, it's easier said, but very tough to do. So when we started implementing for a couple of clients, so we had multiple hiccups, right? As Shravant was saying, you have like 1,500 HIS, and then you talk about like this 30,000 odd suppliers. There again, there is no market leader, and there are like diverse applications on that. And again, data cleanness. So one tablet called Dolo code is being called in different names by the manufacturer and the hospital, and leave alone between these two entities within a hospital. 100%, I assure you, you go into a hospital, there will be one tablet Dolo code, there will be one Dolo code tablet, etc. Right? So to have this electronic document exchange, these problems have to be solved, and a lot of integration has to happen with the diverse set of applications. Okay, but once that was done, okay, there was complete automation. Once a PO comes in, it goes and sits as a sales order automatically in the supplier ecosystem. And from there, it automatically goes to the C&F system, and from there to the manufacturer, right? And when an invoice is being made by the supplier, right? So all the expiry date and everything, batch number, etc., automatically comes as a draft GRN in your HAS, right? So this enables seamless movement of data from one system to other system with as minimal manual work as possible. Okay, manual work is decreased, speediness of transaction increases, error factor goes down. Okay, and better compliance is also achieved. Okay, so this again can be a very, very big important thing, which will allow the SCM team to completely focus on what physically they have to handle, and only that, right? Rather than following up and doing all this manual work. Obviously, this is where again technology can be a big boon. Okay, and if I may have a couple of more seconds, right? Do we have a couple of minutes?
Sure, go ahead.
Great. So the third thing is, right, what is the convenience you have when you try to purchase a mobile phone from Amazon? Why can't that be provided to your purchase manager sitting in a purchase department of a hospital? Okay. Multi-specialty or like multi-location hospitals, think about a scenario. So Agarwal Hospital wants to buy a spare parts for one of its equipments. This equipment has been sourced from Sweden. This spare parts has to be sourced from a company in Ahmedabad. Then the service provider who can come and fit this spare part has to come from Trivandrum, and the branches is in Calcutta, and the SCM team is in Chennai. Okay, so look at how much kind of complications or works has to happen on the floor in Chennai. Okay, with all these entities. While a very similar tough thing happens in Amazon, right? Amazon procures this, wrapper from somewhere. Then the warehouse is somewhere. You order from here, and you order 3 items from different suppliers, right? But seamlessly in a screen, you are able to track exactly what is the status of your order, and if there is a delay, you are notified. And if you want to communicate with them, there is a single UI in which you will be able to do that. Okay. this is something which definitely has a big role for making the role of an SCM head very, very effective. Okay. Um, Again, there are like SAP's kind of very sophisticated ERPs for manufacturers. Even very rarely suppliers or C&Fs are using that. Then there are HIS, right? But what happens in between these two systems, right? The moment when a purchase order is released, till the item is getting received, there's a big black hole for the purchase manager or the end user. Okay, so we should have adopt platforms which can enable these two entities to talk and communicate with each other and get like, hey, I have made an order, I go into the system, or I don't need to go into the system, I take my mobile and it clearly says when am I going to get my equipment or when am I going to get my injection,
Mhm.
and it should tell me when there is going to be a delay or when there is an escalation which somebody has to take a look at it, right? So
Yeah.
that is again one area which can be very, very interesting, and in whatever experience what we have done that implemented that is giving a lot of comfort factor not only the SCM team, even for the end users, right from the surgeons to the patients. It has been very, very interesting
Yeah.
and useful for them.
No, you bring